Hey guys,
Hello.
welcome back to the Burnout Brighter podcast. I think this is episode 108, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you, because I was like, don't say the wrong number. Anyways, guys, I'm super excited. Oh my God. Guys, please give a round of applause for the amazing, beautiful, talented gamer, Sharpie. Sharpie, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. I have been so excited to get you on here when Danny told us about you. Guys, also, please go listen to that podcast. Danny's amazing. She's basically the creator of Validate. She works with a lot of other people, but she was like, you have to get Danny on. And so then I researched you and I was like, I have to get this chick on. Like, she's fucking amazing. She is doing the damn thing out there. And she's been the first African-American female to do so many things that I didn't even know about. Like, she schooled me. Like, we've been talking like 20 minutes before the podcast even started. So Sharpie, please, I want our listeners to know how fucking amazeballs you are. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So hi everybody, what's up? I'm the Purple Sharpie, but I go online by Sharpie if you're feeling especially suspicious for whatever reason. I have done a multitude of things. I started by playing Super Smash Bros. Melee when I was 19 years old, and I hosted my very first event where I had over 115 people inside of my home. For that event, at which point then I just kind of proceeded to keep competitively gaming. I ran Xanadu, which is, I should say, the largest Super Smash Bros. Venue in the world, and I ran traditional fighting games at that venue for 3.5 years. I just recently left, and that was actually because I'm getting married, so I have to focus
Congratulations
on that. Yeah.
Oh
Thank you. My fiance's really sweet, and they're also really, really good at video games, which is like the biggest and most important thing to me.
Right?
Obviously.
If he was trash, I don't know if you guys would make it.
No, we wouldn't. I'm just going to be honest with you. We would not. It would not be. There have been past suitors, and I've had past partners that were very bad at video games, and like, it just didn't work out. It never works out when I'm better than you in a video game. It never is. It's not good for you.
I know some guys who are like sore losers, so I can imagine.
I don't deal with sore losers as much anymore in general, like in my circle, because something that I've noticed is that when I speak with people who actually have fun playing video games, they don't tend to get very salty when they lose because they understand it's just a game. And even when people play competitively, and like, as long as they still understand that it is just a game, usually I don't have to deal with like too much toxicity from them. It's really from people that don't know me at all, that have never been to a tournament, that just have been having like the worst day of their life apparently, and need to take it out on the closest woman to them, which always happens to be me. And that's the story of my life. The genuine story of my life is that I've always loved video games, literally always, and I just never had the heart to stop. Like, everyone's always like, Sharpie, you're spending so much money and time and energy on video games right now. Is it worth it? And every single time I would look back at them with only like 3 hours of sleep the last week and be like, I'm doing fine, thank you. Like,
you hear that? It's not a phase, Dad.
Exactly. This isn't like emo music or, skinny jeans. Gosh, I can't. It's like, I'm most notably known right now for being the very first Black woman to ever commentate EVO Online, and the only Black woman that was at EVO Online. And I'm also known for being like the biggest Skullgirls fan in the world. So that's me. What's up? I'm Sharpie. It's nice to meet you.
Aww. You're so adorable.
I don't see it, but everyone else does.
You're like, I'm Sharpie. Like, it's super cute.
It's the way I would animate my life.
I could see you as a cute little anime character, definitely. But no, that's amazing. God, there's so many people who want to be where you are, and I love that you're doing it because it gives those those little black girls who are into gaming, who are told that they shouldn't be into gaming, or that like being into gaming isn't going to lead to anything, like they can look online, they can follow social media, and they could see you doing big things. And I think that's very important, because like I've always said, representation matters, and you're breaking barriers, whether you're thinking about it or not. Like, you're breaking barriers by doing something that you absolutely love, which is a plus because you love doing it, but also you're just opening new doors for these kids. And for any other Black female, like for me, I don't necessarily want to be a commentator, but like now I know if I did want to be a commentator, like it's Sharpie
possible.
did it, I could fucking do it.
It's super possible. Yeah, that's to be very honest with you. I've always tried to make my content with my younger sisters in mind. I have a younger half sister and a younger stepsister. I grew up being the eldest of 4 boys, so it was like the 5 of us in the house, and I was always told by my father that like there were certain things that girls are allowed to do and certain things we're not allowed to do. And that was very prevalent in my household. So it was like, while I always really enjoyed computers and tech and stuff like that, and I used to watch like E3 and G4 all the time growing up, just because I love tech so much. And my father worked at Microsoft and RSA. So it's like I grew up literally playing with all these electronics, but we never really got to like play with them, because it was like, you know, one of those things where it's like computers will rot your brain. I didn't get to watch TV a lot growing up. I played outside a lot. I played soccer. I played violin for 17 years of my life. I took like Spanish. I have all this really strong background. I speak like 5 different languages. It's like it's like one of those things where it's like there is a really strong fundamental base that I have, and a lot of other things that are not games, that has kind of helped with my success here. And which is why like so many people see me succeeding in things seemingly effortlessly. And it's really just because I had a very strong foundation in not video games, and specifically tech. And I used to read a lot growing up. Like that was my whole thing, was I read, because we didn't have computers that we were allowed to play on in my house. So it was like, if I wanted to go enjoy myself, I had to read a book. Like the books that I always read was The Dark Realms. It was about this dark elf named Drist, who actually, or The Forgotten Realms, and it was about this dark elf.
Is it the dark elf?
Yeah. I read all those. I read that entire trilogy growing up, and I fell in love with that entire fantasy world. And like the very first game I ever remember actually like super hardcore loving and falling in love with was Diablo 2, and that was because my dad, because he worked at Microsoft, he would get like old discarded like computers and rebuild them inside of our basement and make like little cubicles for us to have LAN parties. And so I used to sit down on this extra console that he had, and we would play like Quake 3 or Diablo 2, and I would just like literally use the console to like mod things into the game and like set up like BFGs or like railguns to spawn in certain areas for Quake 3 arena and stuff, like with my brothers. So it's like I had this really strong foundation literally in gaming, because we only got so much time to spend it when I was growing up, and I really cherished those moments. And growing up was just like, as soon as I got out of the house, it was just like, so I can play video games whenever I want now, you know, like let's go. Like the very first thing I ever did as soon as I got into college was try to find like an old discarded PlayStation 2, and I saved up like, I think I must have like sold at least 3 weeks worth of like my food money in college to buy a PlayStation 2, because PlayStation 3s were too expensive. But I bought a PlayStation 2, and I was able to play like old games that I had always wanted to play growing up but couldn't because we weren't allowed to. So it was like I really just do it for like little 16-year-old me that really wanted to play video games all the time instead of being a healthy, well-developed teenager, you know?
I mean, like, that doesn't mean you weren't healthy or, you know, not.
Oh, no, it definitely does. I can be very honest with you. It definitely does. I have not left my house in now 3.5 weeks. I can promise you.
I don't see a problem with that. Yeah. But that's because I'm an introvert, and I am definitely okay with staying within my space for a long time. But no, like, I would not say unhealthy. You are literally doing things. Like, you're not just laying in bed. Do you know what I'm saying? And one of the things that you said that I think is very important is education is important. It doesn't have to be the traditional type of education.
No, absolutely not.
Like, you can learn anything and use it for whatever you want to use it for, right? Yeah. So I think that's really important, because I think within the United States, I don't know how it is in Canada, and I know how it is in South Korea, but I think there's this idea of one shoe fits all, and that's just not how life is. That's not how people are. That's not how we work. That's not how our society works, even though we keep pushing that onto children.
Oh, so, God, no. I graduated from high school with a 2.25 GPA. Like, I was very close to, like, failing. I never failed a class, but it was always, like, all the classes I took. Yeah.
The range of your success. And that's
no, at all. And that's what I'm trying to show.
Stupid. No, and you are successful. You're successful in what you enjoy. And a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are successful at things they don't even want to do. Yeah. Right? So it's important that you're not like a cog in the wheel, that you're out there paving your own way. Like, I am so proud of you. Like, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Like, no, legit. Like, I'm so happy that you're out there doing what you want to do, because I know so many people that got pushed into college, and not that college is a bad thing, but it's become this thing where they want you to get a degree for everything, and now it's become very predatory. Like, you don't need a degree for everything, but they're pushing 100%. The agenda that you do, and you get stuck with all these loans. It's just fucking stupid.
That's me. I'm right here still paying off my loans at like 30 because my idiot dummy butt went to an HBCU and took out $48,000 in loans.
You didn't know, though.
And feel bad. They sell you. They sell you heavy on it.
Didn't know. When our parents went to school, you could actually have a part-time job or a summertime gig and pay off a majority of your, of your college, schooling. Yeah. But
you can't do that anymore.
All they did was push onto us what they thought, but it's
the way it is. I will tell people, like, straight up, everything that I learned about editing and about computers, I learned all of that outside of college.
Yeah.
Like, the job I'm currently working, I work IT help desk, and I make like a certain amount of money, and it's a decent amount of money. It's a good chunk of money. And they didn't even ask to see any of my college stuff. They were just like, yeah, can you answer these questions? Can you do this thing? And then give me a broken computer. And they're like, fix it. And I fix it. And they're like, you got the job. And I was like,
yeah, as long as you show this skill, like, a lot of jobs are like that now, because there's this idea that it attached with a degree is a certain amount of pay, and they don't want to do that. Right?
Ultimately, what I always recommend to people, especially people going into the gaming sphere or any tech sectors, is that if you have the ability, get your certificates, and then go intern somewhere, and you will get significantly more jobs than if you ever got a degree. A degree is really only good for people who are trying to move into different industries. Yeah. Like, because I got my degree, or was like 4 credits shy of getting my degree, basically I can go somewhere else and be like, hey, I went to this school for this long, but what they're really looking at is my experience in that field. Yes. A degree would really only be like, okay, so you got your degree in this thing, and now it's 10 years later, what did you do with it? Nothing. Yeah. I don't care anymore. That's $84,000 down the drain for no reason. Yeah. Like,
I really feel like degrees are only really great for certain career paths. If you want to become a teacher,
and
a
lawyers,
doctor, and a lawyer, like, those are the 3 that I think really, like, you have to have a degree. Yeah. Like, if you want to teach, you want to cut people open and operate on them, and if you want to represent people, like, that's what it is. But like,
I noticed you didn't say congressperson there, and that's interesting.
Oh boy,
we all know why. But
I'm sorry. Back about video games and about, like, how much I love them. Yeah. I was very, very honored to actually host for the second time, the Game Devs of Color Expo this year. It was the very second year they did it online. Last year was the first, and I had the opportunity to host it then. This year is actually what I feel like one of the best expos ever. And if you hadn't have an opportunity to check it out, go to twitter.com/GDOC Expo. Grab a ticket. You can actually see all of the events that were held. You can still see the VODs of them through swap cards. So even though the event is no longer going on, I still encourage all of our viewers and listeners to go ahead and just check it out there.
And we'll post that information below for you guys. So
Absolutely.
Like, you don't have to look it up yourselves. We'll definitely post it down below. So all you got to do is click the link.
What I will say is that the event has... First of all, what I'll say is that the event is very largely responsible for who I am today. I went to the event for the very first time in 2018, and it was at a point in time when I had just started doing content. But I've been streaming at that point for, I think, like 7 years or so. Right. And I was like a pretty big, well-known person inside the fighting game. Not like big, but like, people kind of knew Sharpie when it came to Skullgirls. People were like, oh, Skullgirls, that's Sharpie. That's who that is, right?
Sure.
And I was very known for like shit posting and posting memes all the time on Twitter. So they asked me to come to an event because it was like I was very good at social media at the time. Like I was posting on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, I made my own website, and I like got a website sponsor to like, so I would get Google SEO and everything. I was trying to make sure that people knew who I was outside of just my region, specifically on the West Coast and the Midwest, which are both areas I don't live in. I currently live in, like I said before, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Mm-hmm. So when I was asked to go, Sean Alexander is actually one of the co-organizers of it. And he asked me if I would like to speak at a panel about like getting known inside of social media and everything. And so I went there, and it was actually my very first time ever going to Harlem in my life. And when I went there, like I just was so moved, because for someone like who grew up inside of the suburbs, I was born in DC, but I grew up in Northern Virginia. So it was like I was almost exclusively around white people all the time. Yeah. Even when I was in college, outside of the HBCU experience, like I was just around white people. And so going to New York, specifically to Harlem, and going to this place where I had read about the Black Renaissance, and I'm very well read when it comes to Black history, especially because both my parents went to Howard. So like it was very important for us, you know, to know our history. So when I went there in the very first time, and I got to go to the Schumer Center where like Langston Hughes spoke and everything like that, and I got to go see all these magical places where like people literally live their life. And I think the most magical thing for me was actually physically just walking down the street and seeing Black women just so comfortable in their essence and themselves. That's not something I ever had seen in my life before. And I was just looking at their, like, I looked in their eyes, and they genuinely had a look that like they were so comfortable with who they were. Like they knew who they were. And that was not a look that I had ever seen before in my life before that moment. Maybe I'd seen it, but I hadn't really identified it. And that entire experience was such an awakening for me, and in terms of like who I was as a person, because I knew I was creative. I've always known I was creative. Like I played a violin for like 17 years of my life. You know, it was like music makes sense to me. The arts make sense to me. But I never really understood where my Blackness came into play with it. I understood that being Black meant that there was a large avenue in life that was not always going to be available for me, even if I tried to force my way into it, you know? So that experience helped me understand how my Blackness comes into play in terms of my content and my story, and how it doesn't define me, but it is a large aspect of who I am and my experiences, and that's not a bad thing. And having that experience for the very first time is something that I'm so thankful for Game Devs of Color for experiencing and allowing me, because they had after parties, and so I would go and I would talk about, like, for the very first time, how I was attracted to women and men, and how I was dating women. Like, that was something I never told anyone else, and I told people that I had just met there because I felt so comfortable in that space. Wow. And I was like, yeah, you know, it kind of hurts when I'll ask a girl out and she's like, you're not really my type, or you look like kind of like too ghetto for me. And it's like having these conversations with other people and experiencing that aspect of both Blackness and queerness, and just the general range of sexuality that still goes, like, bisexuality is not just liking men and women. Sometimes it's just liking everybody and everything. And sometimes that's like, labels are weird. And that's what I realized going to that event, is that labels don't matter to the human experience. And they're just something that we created to help define things, to make it easier to explain it. And so it's like that entire awakening was so important to me, even as someone who grew up exclusively around DC, an area that's like that was 97% Black in like the mid 90s and the early 2000s. You know, it's just so crazy that it took me going to Harlem specifically to an event and being there around other creative Black folks, just to like realize where I was and who I am, and how I'm more than just my race or my sexuality. It's like I'm an experience. And that was just such a beautiful thing to find out. And I'm like ever thankful to the event for doing that. And they continue to do it today. So it's like, basically, long story short, if you've ever had questions regarding, like, as a person of color or as a marginalized person, if you've ever had questions about where to find like more information about people that are like you, interested in video games, game developers, or even just publishers, like GDOC is such a great place to do it. And it's where I found myself. And I'm very thankful for that experience, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I mean, like, that was beautiful. That was really well said. And I could relate on so many levels, especially because my dad was in the military. So, like, we lived in Germany for a while, which is a lot of white people.
Yes, it is.
Then we moved to Tennessee.
Ooh, I'm playing Nacht music. No, thank you. Oh my gosh.
A lot of white people. So the first time I was around a majority of Black people, this is going to sound really weird, but it was in South Korea. And it was just like a lot of expats that like I just met. And because we were all Black, we immediately kind of like came together at events and things like that. But no, I would love to have that experience, because I think for a long time I was always that token kind of Black chick.
Oh my God, yeah, me too.
Every stereotype about what a Black woman is placed on you, because most of the people that you know who are also white have not been around a lot of Black people. So
exactly. Yeah. It was a whole thing. Like I remember specifically in 6th grade having this huge obsession. Like I was on Gaia like 24/7. I loved everything about animation. Whenever I got a computer, or like the very first time I got a cell phone, the very first thing I did was like try to install a way to access like Gaia, you know? And so my mom knew that I loved like Hello Kitty and Tokidoki, which was an old line from a French designer way back when. And I was absolutely obsessed, you know? So my mom bought me this Hello Kitty boombox. And I just lost my mind as soon as I got it. And it was just like, that was the moment where I think like my mom kind of realized that like, you know, Sheila likes weird stuff. And it was just kind of one of those things where she's like, as long as she can express herself, it'll be okay. And I think my parents were both so comfortable in their Blackness. Like it was so important to them always explaining Black culture. And like, it was so important that we name every single country in Africa, that we knew like about the history of BET, that we knew HBCUs, that like they both went to Howard. And it was important to them that we knew about the Black fraternities and sororities, that we knew about the Big Nine, that we knew all this important stuff about our culture, because like, I'm just now realizing at the age of like 30 that most Black children don't know this.
Yeah,
like
no, they don't.
I
definitely did not grow up. Yeah,
like it literally took me being inside the fighting game community for like almost 6 years to realize this isn't on the forefront of every child's mind. Like the way that I think about the world and the way I look at the world specifically through the lenses of like, this is how people will look at you when you're Black, and basically like knowing my history and knowing where I came from. That's not normal for Black people, because most of their times, like their parents aren't able to have that hand-in-hand experience with them when they're growing up and being like, this is where you came from and this is what was important to you. Like my mom, this is so embarrassing. When I was in 3rd grade, my mother used to go to my school, an all white, like almost exclusively white school in like the suburbs. And she would go as Sojourner Truth and Black History Month, and she would go to every single class and every single one, and she would like just, you know, basically cosplay as Sojourner Truth. She would tell them about her life. Not Harriet Tubman. A lot of people thought she was Harriet Tubman, but I knew about Sojourner Truth when I was a little child, like because my mom would go every single year, so everyone knew me. And it was like, as the daughter of that woman that does Sojourner Truth stuff. And it was really funny, but it was like, I used to play with Barbies a lot growing up, and I stopped playing with them because one day someone said that Barbie doll will never look like you. You'll never be that Barbie doll. And it was like, that entire experience, like, you know, it cements you so much.
That's
like,
such a shitty thing to say to
but
a
kids,
child.
But
kids are dicks. You know, I get it. My dad actually stopped buying me white Barbie dolls, and like for like, so the only dolls he'd ever buy me were Black dolls. And it's different. Like, I love that your parents took the time to sit there and like educate you on different like historical Black figures in our past that have done such amazing things. Because when we go to school, we don't learn about that stuff. Like that's not something we're taught. For me, it was a little different. Like my dad was a very militant Black man, and my dad raised me. So I feel like what was on the forefront for him, because he was born in 51, and he went through the whole like changing of schools. His teaching was the Black struggle. So I feel like that is what I focused on so much, and why like I want why I push so much to have inclusion and diversity and things. And the reason why I went into animation and got my degree in animation is because I wanted to see more of us on the screen. Because I remember growing up and like we were always like the sidekick, or we weren't that important. And I was like, I want to see us. I want.
So you also lost your mind when Afro Samurai came out, I guess, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like everybody wanted that to succeed so hard, you know. And I felt bad for the creator because it's like it was very clearly he wasn't trying to make that, but he also, you know, it was we pushed all of our hopes and dreams on him.
We did. I mean, like because it's just not been done on that level before, right?
Oh yeah,
it was something that wasn't about us being slaves or us dealing with the Jim Crow era.
Even the Boondocks. I used to like collect that series in the Washington Post every single Sunday.
I used to too.
Yeah, and I just kept it in like a little thing underneath my bed, and I would read it every other.
That was a huge thing. That was the first time it was an all black syndicated like cartoon in the Sunday newspaper, right?
Yeah.
And okay, so I'm this is an unpopular opinion, but I always thought it was better in the newspaper than when it was animated. I like the animated show, but I felt like...
So here's my thing about the Boondocks, and I've said this several times over, right? So first and foremost, when posting the syndicated newspaper, I felt like it was still very edited, specifically because there's only so much you can say, right? The animation faltered specifically because when it started trying to appeal to the white audience, it stopped being about the narrative of black success. And that was the issue. The story is inherently two children who were not able to be taken care of anymore by their unfit mother that are then moved to the suburbs with their grandfather who is able to provide for them, and them living in a primarily white institution or primarily white area after coming from an area that was specifically like the ghetto.
Like predominantly,
So it was like, I identified very, very, very closely with Huey, you know? And so it was like a problem when I see the animation and I'm like, oh, Regina's voicing both of them? Let's go. This is a great show. This is fantastic, right? And then you watch the first season and you're like, it was really good. The first season was very good. I don't care what anybody says.
Good.
It was very, very good. The issue became when it started being more about Uncle Ruckus, who was a hilarious figure.
I'm sorry, I hated him.
No, you're supposed to hate him. That was the story.
I know, but
the issue became that he became a tool, similar to the way that Dave Chappelle's skits became a tool for white America to identify with Black America.
A lot of people still don't understand to this day why Dave Chappelle stepped away.
He left because he grew up in a similar situation as you and I, where he had very educated, very, very wealthy, I shouldn't say very wealthy, but like upper middle class. Like families that gave him a very good education, and he pursued comedy the best way he knew how. Like the same way I pursue gaming. He did it the best way he knew how, and then ultimately became very, very successful by speaking about political commentary in a very insightful way. Exactly. When he did all of that, and he was making satire, it became to the lowest form of like comedy to people who didn't understand it. They're just like, haha, it's funny because of the very first layer, Black people are funny. That was the issue. And that's why he stepped away, was because he was like, I'm not doing that content. And he did that content for like a very long time. He did that type of videos. He did movies with other Black directors and Black actors where he had to do that type of stuff because it was like, haha, that's funny, you know? But it's like
they didn't want to give him room to grow. And I think that was part of the issue too. It's like they wanted to dictate how, like, he didn't want, and I'm glad, he didn't want to become an Uncle Ruckus for white people to feel like that's the safe, funny Black guy.
I honestly just think, and this is a not unpopular opinion with our generation, but perhaps the previous generation, he didn't want to become Steve Harvey or Tom Joyner. That was what it ultimately was.
Steve Harvey.
I can't either. And that's because Steve Harvey, similar to Bernie Mac,
and that's so sad. That is so sad. Like,
it's just, you know, that's what it was.
Money. It's the money that talks, and like
it's not the money. It's the white audience specifically. It's like,
I definitely think it's the white audience, but I also think it's the money, because if you look and you like research and you see how like Black men were taken from. Okay, so for example, you have Black men who start out in movies, right? When they start out in movies, they're in Black movies by Black directors.
Yeah.
The more so-called safe they seem, the more fame they get, the more money they get, the less they're in Black movies. Like, Will Smith is the perfect example for this. He does not act in Black movies anymore. He is acting in one now because he's not at the top of his game. Now he's playing Serena's parents, Serena's father, blah, blah, blah. But for a minute, yeah, his co-stars, his love interests stopped being Black women. They started being, they just got lighter and lighter until they were white women. You know what I mean? And it's so fucked up because it is the money. Because at some point, this is why I love Denzel Washington. At some point, you can say, when you're that big, look, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to sit here and only star in movies where my love interest is not a woman of color. Denzel Washington refuses, and this is not me saying that this is a good thing. This is his personal prerogative. I understand it. I accept it. And I understand his reasons for it. He will not take on a white female love interest because he knows how devastating that would be to the Black community.
Yeah, and he can afford to do that because his wife is very successful. His wife was, as his son has said several times, his wife is very successful and makes quite a bit of money. So it's like being able to set those things is huge. But ultimately what it comes down to is the entertainment business is predominantly run by the money of the white audience.
Yes.
So until that becomes palpable for a majority of people, like, that's what has to happen. And the unfortunate thing is that while I am considered like lighter skin, which I've never understood, I genuinely think it's just the lighting, but like, because I appear to be lighter, specifically on stream, I've noticed that like certain people will watch my stream over darker women. And that's like something that, that's like colorism 101. Real. Yeah, it's very, very real. Even like, I used to get teased all the time, especially being around like white people all the time for being so dark. But it's like, it wasn't until I got around like other Black people, like specifically people that were like first or second generation American, that I was like, I'm not really that dark. Dude, like, no, I'm not even really that dark.
I used to think I was super dark. I remember.
Me too. I thought I was like purple and shit. And like I was over here with a complex, dude.
You were in the color purple. Me too. That's who I thought.
Every single time. And so like it's a hard lens to go through. And I feel really bad because we're ignoring the white man inside of the room. And I'm not trying to say that you're not important in any way, shape, or form. It's just
Darren is very smart. Like, he will say things when he feels it's okay to say things.
I just want to say I appreciate you giving us our space right now, because in the past that has not always been the case, and I do appreciate it. But in the same vein, very frequently I feel like sometimes because of like, not, and this isn't about you, Darren, or even about white men in general, but I very frequently feel like Black women, despite being the first to do many a thing, will very frequently be ignored until it becomes palpable for a larger audience, specifically like the cis white audience, which is just the way it is. But I didn't come here to talk about like anti-whiteness.
I want to say, can I say something really quick?
Yes.
I want to say one of the best parts about doing this podcast is giving a platform to other people. So I'm enjoying this conversation. I'm enjoying learning things. I'm learning lots of things. Also, because I am Canadian, I'm not American. There's a lot of points about American history that I was never taught or I never experienced.
Fair.
So, I mean, I'm just here for moral support, okay? Like, I want to give a room to my guests to explore and express themselves.
We've talked about this before. Like, I've thanked Matt and Darren for being so open and allowing me to bring on people of color to talk about their experience. And they're like, you don't need to thank us. And I'm like,
yeah, you don't need to thank us.
You really don't. Like, but it's genuinely a thing.
I don't think you don't understand how that's not normal.
When I am very frequently asked to do panels or talks, specifically, like the very first time I was ever actually asked to talk about social media specifically and how to grow on social media was game devs of color. Like, before that, the only time I had ever been asked to do anything was about either being Black or being a woman or both. Like, that's what it was. And that's what my entire experience honestly since has kind of been, with the exception of like GDOC. And that's why I'm so thankful to like GDOC, because it's like they don't focus on my blackness through the lens of just me being black. They focus on how have you succeeded like while you were black, you know, that experience. And I feel like that's so much more of a positive spin than what did you contribute to as a black person. You know, it's so much less accusatory, it's so much more celebratory, it's so much more focused on like your personal triumphs and what you may have overcome, as opposed to just being like, well, you know, you're black, so like you can't do anything, so like what did you do, you know? And I feel like a lot of media specifically, and this is where I am going to call out Beyonce, focuses and kind of has like an obsession with making black women appear to be the first of everything when they can. Like, for example, here's a very, very good example. Someone said that Beyonce was like the very first black woman to win like some type of Grammy or something like that at something like some streaming thing, like something. And I just remember thinking, well, you know, if they let like Ella Fitzgerald attend these awards, she probably would have been the first. Like, so are we not going to talk about like all the times that we just ignored every other like black artist and we didn't allow them to compete at the same level? Are we going to talk about that?
No.
Are we going to talk about like how Fat Domino wasn't even allowed to literally smoke outside of the club that he was performing at? Because it would be seen as a jazz club inherently with black people. Are we not going to talk about how most radio stations wouldn't even play jazz or R&B or even other forms of rock and roll because it was considered too black, until Elvis Presley, literally run by a black man and managed by a black man, decided to start like changing that conversation? Are we not going to talk about that? So it's like everyone wants to have all these accolades for Beyonce, and I'm like, yes, go the fuck off. Like, Michael Jackson did this, Beyonce did that, go the fuck off. But like, then you can never ever say that racism wasn't an instrumental aspect of American history, and specifically the African American experience, because it's like seeing, oh yeah, this very light-skinned, blonde, extension-haired, long black woman is just so powerful now that she's a mother. Not when she was a part of Destiny Child, but now that she's a mother and palpable to the white female American, we can now sell that idea. And I have this whole issue with specifically black women becoming more palpable when they have children, because I hate that idea of the only time we become that people are able to see us as human is when we're taking care of something. That's really, sorry. Video games are fantastic, and I'm a big fan of them.
Let me just tell you, this is not just about video games. Like, we talk about video games, but we also talk about mental health. We also talk about social justice. Talk about what you want to talk about. This is your space to tell our listeners how you feel, and we want to know how you feel.
What I want to say is that very large inspirations for me happen to be Black Americans who came before me, specifically like maybe even 5 or 10 years before me, and have managed to succeed despite the fact that being Black in America was still considered basically a crime against humanity. And a very good example that I like to give is Donald Glover, specifically Childish Gambino. Y'all may know him as that name, and so I talked about him before. Yeah, I know him as both too, and I know him as Donald Glover because I watched him on YouTube. So it was like, seeing him transform into a musician was really amazing, but I thought what was more amazing was the fact that he was able to be a very successful writer and comedian before any of that. Because I think there are just so many times where it's like, people will put you inside of a box, especially when you're Black and performing. And I saw that a lot inside of some of his sketches, which were like the most popular sketches that his sketch comedy group called Derek Comedy did, were like ones that were very much so, haha, white people saying something racist to a Black guy, right? Like, there's one where he's talking about, like, I think, like, there are 2 places Black people like to go, and that's Walmart and Six Flags. And it's like this whole sketch about 2 white advertising men that are trying to like give this presentation to a man that's Black, and they didn't hear there are 2 places people like to go, and they heard Black people, and it's a very awkward race. Like, that's the joke. The joke is it's very awkward for these white people. That's the entire joke, is that they've now offended this Black man. That's the joke, right? And I feel like so much of his comedy transcends that now. You know, like that's a very base joke to make, and it's very obvious that's like not the first intention joke you want to make. It's like more layered than that. There's more nuance now, but I think it's really telling how he was able to succeed as an actor, as a comedian, as a singer slash songwriter, and as a performer in general, who went on to inspire other people like Jaden Smith, you know, and a whole generation of people exactly like me, despite how he is now. Like a lot of I'm not here to talk about his relationship and his fondness for Asian women and hatred for
what
Black
I was
women.
gonna say,
I'm not.
I was, but I'm gonna bring it up because listen,
do it.
You
were the same way as me.
Yeah, I was a super fan until he said something really fucked up, and I got real upset.
Black women,
I don't date Black women because like, they act and they don't like the weird Black guy. And I was like, look, I need you to just fess up that you have a thing for Asian women and white women and not try to put the blame on all Black women. I hate blanket statements, but all Black women that like, we didn't find you attractive. Like, just stop.
Because the big issue ultimately I feel with that is that the type of Black girl he's looking is the Huxtable girl, you know? Like, and that's what a lot of guys like that are looking for, is they're looking for that college educated, super preppy Black girl that is just super down and is, for all intents and purposes, not Black. You know?
Not even that. I think a lot of them look for that kind of video vixen. Like I literally, and I don't know his.
He is not that He's not attractive enough to be out here dating Halle Berry, and like I'm offended by the fact that he thinks that he is. I know.
That's what they want,
and so it's like people look at me now, and they're like, "Oh, Sharpie, you're so pretty, you're so cute," and so on and so forth. I was like, "Yeah, but the only reason I'm like this now, like you should see me when my hair is out, like." I know my fiance still loves me, and I still love myself now, but for a very long time growing up, I was unable to love myself because it's like seeing Black men saying that they only like Black women that look this way was not uncommon growing up.
That happens a lot.
Especially in like predominantly white areas, because that's the only type of Black man that exists inside of those white areas. I shouldn't say only type, but it's the majority. It's a majority, and it's very, very loud.
See it reinforced on TV, right? Like all the video vixens were either mixed or they were Asian,
exactly,
or
Hispanic, or Hispanic, but they were not. They were
not Black.
They were not just Black, is what I should say.
Yeah,
and so it was like. It gave me a complex. So like growing up,
girl.
I was like, even when like specifically like white men would express interest in me, I would always be like, no, you don't really like me.
Oh
my
God.
Yeah. You don't really like me. How can you like me? I'm Black.
We are going to be best friends.
We would have.
Still to this day, and I'm in my 30s, I question it. And I get a lot of attention from white men. I don't know why, but I do. And I'm always like,
yeah.
But you haven't seen my real hair down. You haven't seen
You don't know.
Like, I don't know.
You don't know me at all.
You think you like
exactly
right? Every single time.
You know my nippies. They be a different color, right?
Like
you know that.
Chocolate.
Like you know, under my arms, it's like dark.
Yes.
And so,
oh my God, yes. Everything about me, I am always questioning. Are they really going to find this attractive? Because I know what they're used to. Yes, and I don't like it. So I'm pretty sure they're not going to like it. But to be fair, every white guy I have ever been with did not give a fuck, right?
They don't. Because they love you. It's the energy.
It's a mental thing.
It is. And it's growing up Black in America. I watched this one like documentary growing up, and they showed like these little Black girls' dolls and everything like that.
God.
And I literally cry. Like I still cry watching documentaries.
Black dolls. Yeah, the Black dolls are ugly, and they prefer the white doll.
Because I remember thinking very similarly when I was younger, and that was my parents. That was literally when my parents started getting very proactive about my Blackness. Yeah. You know, when they were like, Sheila is like responding very negatively to Black culture, you know, and it was very, very, very toxic. And like, while all these opportunities, like that's something that I'm very thankful for. I grew up inside of an area with a lot of privilege, but I was not born in an area with a lot of privileges. And my parents identified that, and luckily had saved up enough money to move into an area where they'd be able to provide for me and raise their family. But the unfortunate side effect of that is like very frequently children that are brought up inside that environment loathe themselves so much because those areas are not pro-black.
Right.
And when they are pro-black, what it really is that they're just accepting of a certain type of black person.
Yes.
They're not like, it's not to say that in order to be pro-black, you have to be anti-white, but there are ways to incorporate different cultures so that it is in general multifaceted and multicultural. Like my school, I think we have they considered our school very multicultural, specifically because we had a large like Hispanic and African-American demographic more than other areas, when the reality was we only had a total of like 15-20%. Which is nothing.
Even have that.
Exactly.
I went to a very.
Oh, that was in total. That was the Black and Hispanic population in my school.
We had like 2 Hispanic kids.
In the entire school?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
In my high school, like, listen, the town that I lived in, my dad took us to. I don't know why. We were the only Black family in our neighborhood. I think there were maybe 15 of us total in my graduating class, maybe less than that. Like and that's just Black. Like it was like 95% just white. So I understand the idea of you saying like you grew up thinking you were ugly or you weren't good enough or da-da-da-da, because like I still suffer from that, right?
Especially when you see Black women on television and they don't have natural hair. Like they're wearing wigs or they're wearing perms or they have straightened. Like it gives you such a complex because that's your only identity growing up. Like when I think the very first time I ever actually like fell in love with like a Black woman, and like to this day, it's like the bisexual crush for me. It was like watching In Living Color for the very first time and seeing some of the Black women on there with just their hair not permed and like just in braids, or like afterwards when I would watch A Different World and I would see, what was it? You know, the Huxtable daughter, and her hair was like in these beautiful fucking
Lisa
locks.
Bonet.
Yes, that bitch is beautiful. And she tags
so beautiful.
every man she wants on earth. And I want that confidence. I want that energy. You know, because she has it.
Momoa too. I wanted
Bitch, I was mad as hell when I heard that interview, and he's like, ever since I was a little kid, he saw
was like,
her and I knew I
want that one.
And I was like, this dude, he's really wiped up with her. Well, if he ever decides, you know.
Okay.
If he ever decides.
Already swing my way.
I'm just saying. And that's
thing.
Something, but just, I'm sorry.
No,
I promise I'll say this and I'll be done.
No.
On the topic of something that I've noticed just specifically this past year, and it all happened back in June. I literally think we can pinpoint it back to June 5th, the exact date of George Floyd's assassination.
Yeah.
No, it was an assassination, honey. That was premeditated type shit, not a murder. It was assassination. When that happened, suddenly we see a huge influx of, oh, we need more Black people on screen now, you know? And so suddenly we start seeing all of these actors who had never before in their life ever been seen filmed with another Black actor or actress suddenly coming out, all being like, I love Lizzo. I love Lizzo so much. Oh my God. Have I ever told y'all how much I love Lizzo? I'm happy for her. I'm happy for her so much because I think she's like my age, and I feel like she played flute. I played violin, so I feel like we had very similar upbringings. I know she went through her tribes and tribulations like for a very long time to get where she is, and I'm very happy for her. I just think it's really unfortunate that very frequently, especially inside the entertainment business, the only way that Black women are given their due is when they're seen as popular or relatable, you know, or like when they can really sing type shit. And it's just like, that's always really bothered me a lot, is all. I'm totally here. I always thought that with everything that happened in 2020 and like that entirety of, you know, basically understanding that more Black people need to be featured in media and entertainment, we would finally see the rise to Black mediocrity, which is what I've been advocating for ever since I said when I was like in 6th grade that I just want to be an average human being that just plays video games all day, you know? And it just feels like we're still required to outperform non-Black people consistently. I should specifically say white people and Asian people very specifically, especially inside the gaming sphere, because people like to say, gaming doesn't have people of color, but the people of color they do have, you're talking exclusively about Asian Americans and Asian Pacificer individuals. You're not talking about Black people, and you're not talking about Black women. You're talking about Black men and women of Asian descent, and it's really frustrating to me. Anyway, that's all I'll say about
No.
that.
I think that's an important point to bring up, because, man, I just lost my train of thought because my ADHD kicked.
I know I went through a lot. I'm sorry. I had to get it out. I've never
No.
said it before on an interview before, but I wanted to share how I felt.
Get it out. Get it all out.
Because, yeah, we've always, I think I've brought it up a couple of times, even like just being brought up in our families, we're always told that we have to work twice as hard as our white counterpart or as our, any other counterpart. And the thing is that it's true in every walk of life. And I think that is going to be something which is unfortunate, something that's going to be the case for a very long time, not just in America, but in Canada and even in South Africa, where it is the fucking mother place of us. They still have to struggle and not be recognized when that's their native land. Do you know what I'm saying? And not even just Black people, but just natives in general, Native Americans, the natives in Canada, and this sounds so bad. And I know a lot of our listeners are white, but just, you guys have to hear me out. A lot of this is not particularly your fault, but it is the fault of someone who looks like you. And that is part of the problem. The majority of the problems that we face in the world today is because of other people who look like you.
What it ultimately comes down to is that due to the consolidation of power, specifically by European Americans, specifically Caucasian Americans and people of European descent, there is a certain type of power dynamic that exists inside of the world today. Not the United States of America, not America, and the world, and the entirety known world. And this exists specifically because of colonization techniques that were over a century ago that still exist and are perpetrated in different institutions.
More than a century ago.
Yes, because what happened was when Europeans started, for lack of a better word, invading these areas and quote unquote colonizing them, they set up a lot of institutions to consolidate their power and keep that power within their power structure, so that regardless of who came back to that area, as long as they were of European descent, they would feel comfortable inside that area. That was how they created it. And the way I liken it is, if you were to go and build a home, right? And you want to make sure that that home always goes to your family, you're going to set up certain rules so that only your family can have that home or that area. That's just what you're going to do as a person.
That's what it is.
That's exactly
what it is.
And so when that is repeated across the entirety of the planet Earth, across so many different cultures where the majority of people on Earth are not of that descent, it has large consequences that are repeated even now, half a millennia later.
It's like a terrible cycle.
It's not a terrible cycle. What is a cycle that doesn't encourage or benefit a certain class of people.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty terrible.
Yeah. I would too. Yeah. I would too. But what I would say is that because it doesn't benefit that certain class of people, and because there are people who can exist in it, people that do look like me, specifically that are non-white, that can exist inside of that ecosystem, they can continue to perpetuate it because it's the only way they found success. And that's a very large innate issue in the world today. And it's a large societal issue that I believe has, unfortunately, I don't want to say no answer because I don't want to sound like super doom and gloom, but the only way to really stop it is kind of what a lot of people in social justice are doing now, by a very direct, hard answer. Like an example I love to give is when I worked at a job previous to the one I'm currently working at, I was going to take off Martin Luther King Day, right? And I came to work because I was like, whatever, I have work I can do, right? It wasn't a federal holiday. And so I went in, and my coworker there, I believe he was around the age of like 54 or like 60 or something like that. He was older, much older. And I was like, yeah, it's Martin Luther King Day. And he's like, that's only a holiday they gave to the blacks just to get out of working. He said that to me. Like,
What?
to me. Like, this isn't before someone says, oh, that, you know, that was early 2000s. So this was in 2017 when a white man said that to me. Said that literally to my face. Like, and I'm just like, you know,
God.
it's hard to imagine that we still live in a world where that rhetoric is so comfortable. And it wasn't in like the deep south, y'all. This was like in Massachusetts. Like, this was in a progressive northern state.
Yeah.
This is a state that votes blue. This is a state that was against slavery, apparently. And it's not really that they were against slavery, it's that they didn't have any need for slavery in the North, where industrialization was larger. Like, it's just so, it's so
the Civil War
BS.
was never about slavery anyway. So
you mean states' rights? Yeah,
it was never really about that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And back on the topic. To be very honest with you, what I'm trying to say is that I feel like without a very direct and very forcible effort from people that are currently being discriminated against, I don't believe that it's possible for a lot of the eco-societal changes to be made that are necessary. And that's why I think the social justice movement that is currently going through Gen Z and some of the younger generation is so important, because as long as that energy is kept up and as long as we continue to make our wants and needs known for equality in general, it will replace the rhetoric that is currently happening today. It may take some time, but it will happen. There are a lot of changes that I thought I would never see. I never thought I would see a Black woman be a vice president. Like, I never thought I'd see a Black man be a president. You know, and when I saw like Venus and Serena become the very first tennis players to ever compete in the Wimbledon, like a sport that every female on my mother's side of the family has always played. It was such a moment for me that was like, I can do this. I can absolutely do whatever I want because these girls are my age and they're doing the exact same thing. So there's a lot of incremental change that can happen. While I don't believe there are any large societal changes that we will see in our lifetime, with the exception of, I believe, gay marriage being legalized specifically because it helps capitalism make more money, and it's kind of bullshit, but whatever, it's a win. I don't think that we can expect much more inside of my lifetime when it comes to certain lights that are a little bit on the more radical side.
I think this is my thoughts, and these are my thoughts, not this is my thoughts. These are my thoughts. I think that people of color have been very radical and very loud for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to take more than us just being loud and radical about the injustice for things to happen. I think it's going to take our white counterparts to be willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of everyone. And until that happens, nothing's really going to change. Everything is like a small band-aid. Nothing is going to really change. And I feel the way that it's handled now is they'll do a little something and then like we'll be really happy that they did it, but it's not monumental. Like, for example,
shout outs to Joe Biden. Thanks so much for Juneteenth. Appreciate it, baby. That's all I've been asking for. Yeah.
Things like that. Things like fucking even Camilla, because she is.
I'm not a fan. But she's an AKA. Like, shout outs to her. But
won't even go into that. But like,
ACAB.
It's things like that. Things like that where we think we have a win, but it's not really a win, right? It's like dangling a carrot in front of someone and just giving them a little bit for them to shut up for a little while. So it really is going to take, because we have been screaming and talking and protesting until like we have been
I don't
doing
like
everything
inheriting
that we can.
Yeah. I don't like inheriting the trauma that Black women inherit.
I don't either, but we're still going through it, though.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, it's not even just inherited. It is things that we still have to face today. I am not at all surprised that white man said that to you, because there are people who like on the outside pretend, but
I'm sure he didn't think he was racist either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have these little things inside of them because they are raised in this society. So I do not completely blame them for being ignorant to it, but I do blame them for not being open to when someone who is a person of color is educating you on what is happening and then you think to question them. That bothers me. Like, shut the fuck up and listen. There is absolutely no way that you could tell a Black person what their experience is if you're not Black.
That's what our educational system teaches people, though.
Yeah.
So it's not a surprise to me, because it's like I watched people that I grew up around that went to the exact same schooling as me, did the exact same extracurriculars as me, like watched and listened to the same music as myself, and even people that have dated me that have gone on to become like the most racist pieces of shits ever, you know? And so it's like I watched that happen, and I'm just like, it happened because of the society we live in.
Our society, and the fact that
blaming
they're just
a singular
not people
person.
Of color. They're not people of color, so they don't know the experience.
No,
and they're
I
not open to
that.
listening to it. They're not opening to learning about it. And that's kind of like where I want to kind of end this before we get into news.
What I will say is, before we move on to the next news piece, and this will be my last thing about it, is that I think, honestly, what is truly a win for Black people everywhere is the fact that a light-skinned man is voicing Toad inside of the Mario movie.
We're going to be talking about that. That's in the news.
Oh,
we're going to be talking about that. Yes, we're going to be talking about that.
Oh, no, that was a failed transition moment. No. It's okay, everybody. Ignore it.
No, it's not.
Can I also thank you both so much?
You can always say something.
I want to. I want to like truly thank you so much for that conversation. It was really, really interesting, and it's actually really important for me too, because I don't know if I've said explicitly what I'm doing in school right now on the podcast, but I am studying to be a teacher, and
thank God.
I am studying to be a high school teacher, there is. I'm going to be raising a lot of kids and a lot of students that are experiencing this trauma, that are experiencing this racism, experiencing all of this, like the unfortunate effects of colonization in Canada. And it's really important for me to hear firsthand like encounters, because like I am a white man. I have not experienced this stuff. I cannot come from firsthand experience. So I need to do everything I can to educate myself, to prepare myself for raising these students that will be experiencing their own histories and violence and things. So thank you so much.
Like my 6th and 7th and 8th grade, and even like he went on to also be my high school history teacher, but he's the one who like helped radicalize me, and he was a white man. And also I think like a reformed Mormon or something like that. It was very funny to me, but it was like he didn't necessarily like understand all of my struggle, but I think he was like leftist enough that he understood the environment I was living in, and like just understanding that when it comes to children can help them be themselves.
It's really important. It is. And that's why I was saying, like, we do need like our white counterparts to be able to be uncomfortable and have those discussions, because listen, and this sucks, but a white person will listen to another white person before they will want to give time and listen to us. Because
God forbid Lady Gaga say something,
we'd be set. If they were willing to listen to us, this would not be an issue. We wouldn't still be talking about the problems that exist today that existed then. And just really quick, Darren, so like a lot of people from the South, a lot of Black people who were like formerly slaves actually made their way up to Canada. So just realize that even when you're talking to these kids, their parents and then their parents behind them also suffered a lot of the like atrocities that we suffered in the US. So like I would say about probably a majority of the Black people up
you mean all the Black people, all of them.
So I don't know if any like have like come from other places, but like
if others did come from other places, it was the direct result of the slave trade, which did also frequent Canada, because there were lush areas that they did try to grow things in Canada, and they did have slavery specifically inside of brothels in Canada.
But I mean like now, like if somebody came from like Jamaica and's like first generation now, not that they didn't have racism over there, but like I don't want to say everybody past was steeped in slavery, because I don't know.
No, every single
definitely majority.
I will tell you straight up, this is a history fact. Every single Black person that currently lives in North or South America is exclusively here on this continent because of slavery. Like
there's no way, because there's
100%.
people who but there's people who come from Africa just to move here. Right?
Okay,
That's
not
what I'm
that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what
talking
about.
Okay. Because I was
about.
like, I'm saying like every single person
Yeah.
like that was born in Jamaica or anything, all of that is due to the slave trade.
Yes, no.
It's
Yeah.
not,
I know
none
that.
of it is native. There wasn't
No.
like a black person that's like, I'm gonna sail a ship
Yeah, no.
with
No.
Noah's
I
Ark.
I absolutely know that. I'm just saying that I don't want you to assume that everybody had that past, because there might be somebody who just is like, they came from,
But every single black person in any aspect in North, Central, or South America has experienced racism.
Yes,
every single
absolutely.
one, regardless of where they're from.
Absolutely.
But anyway, moving on to the next
news.
topic at hand, right?
Okay. So,
she said spirit fingers.
News. Yeah, we're going to finish off with some news. Thank you so much. I guess, well, as we alluded to, as Sharpie alluded to, we are going to be talking about, well, the Nintendo Direct just came out this past week. Sharpie and Destiny, did either of you watch the Nintendo Direct?
I watched a portion of it through Twitter.
Okay, perfect. Well, there's two things really that I want to talk about. One of them being the Mario Brothers movie, which we will talk about, I think, right in a second.
Yeah.
Before the Mario Brothers movie, I actually want to bring up the other thing, is the way that they're changing the Switch Online service. So Nintendo announced that for people that already have Switch Online, for those who don't know, includes playing online. It includes like family plans, cloud saves, and access to an air quote ever-growing library of NES and SNES games. However,
he wants a word with you.
Yeah, I know, right? So how this is changing is they announced that there will be an expansion pack to the service that includes Sega Genesis games and Nintendo 64 games. However, as an expansion pack, you will now have to pay extra to access these games. And Sharpie, one thing that I'm actually thinking about specifically to do with you as someone who organized Xanadu, I know how passionate you are probably about Super Smash Brothers. And Nintendo is very well known to cancel a lot of fan projects and things. I know Nintendo recently shut down, I think, special online mod servers for Melee, or is it Smash 64?
Slippy Plus at Big House, a couple of other tournaments that were running online, specifically Melee and Project Melee events, yes.
Yeah. So although they have not announced Super Smash Bros. 64 to be one of these N64 games, all N64 games that come to their service will have online functionality. So
interesting that they announced that now, huh?
I know, right? So my question to both of you is, how do you feel about Nintendo charging extra for these Sega Genesis and Nintendo 64 games, an extra price on top of their service that's arguably kind of not that great to begin with?
I mean, I'm assuming Sega has to be getting a cut somehow.
Probably.
So
yeah,
I can understand the Sega. Nintendo 64, I don't know why they're charging for that when they already own all the IPs for that. But I'm assuming for Sega, they're having to like... Sega needs a part of money, otherwise they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, there would have to be some rights things for Sega. But yeah, Nintendo 64 games.
Yeah. Nintendo 64, I don't understand.
Also,
I just kind of feel like Nintendo has always been very protective of their IP, and any opportunity that they receive to make a little bit of extra cheddar on the side is always a plus for them. Because I remember all the different expansions that the GameCube and the Game Boy SP and the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Color had, exclusively when it would have been easier for them to come out with a brand new console which had integrated features, specifically like a backlight, which they made a brand new feature with just a backlight that could play Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games, and they marketed that for a very long time. So, I mean, I mean, I'm not a
They're
stranger.
company, so
They're a company. They do what they got to do to make money, and they make a ridiculous amount of money compared to other
they're
publishers
very
out
good at
here.
it.
So,
Very good at it.
this just sounds like Nintendo to me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it sounds like, am I surprised that they're charging? No. Do I wish they charged? No. Like,
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't, but it's the way they've always done business. So
I just want, I always like, despite how much I love Nintendo, like I have my Switch right beside me. I friggin' love them
Ooh.
so much. But
well,
I cannot stop. Sorry, I cannot stop an opportunity to call them out for their freaking bullshit when it comes to canceling fan projects and canceling like mods and things. When on the like eShop right now, you can buy from a third party an arcade version of Mario Brothers that is not like, some companies selling Mario Brothers as their own game. Nintendo does not stop that. But somebody wants to like add online to a game and for free, and they're like, no, you can't do that.
No, you can't do that. Why would you? Okay, first of all, if you're going to be out here getting Twitch subscriptions based off my IP that I made over 21 years ago, someone has to stop you. And if it's not Nintendo, then who?
Yeah.
You know? Like,
potential of how much money they
why
could
can't
possibly make on
anyone
it.
why can't anyone think about the big guy in this picture, huh? You know, Nintendo is out here making over
Slaving
$4.6 billion off of
Day
their
after
very
day.
poorly paid development teams, dude. Like,
Yeah.
who's gonna really think about these dev teams that are out here having to slave away for 80-hour work weeks, dude? Who's gonna think about Sakurai? He's been working in this industry for 50 years now. Come on. Come on.
Yeah.
We can't just let him go to waste not working, dude.
Shame on all of us.
Only
for
Nintendo would cancel a Splatoon tournament
not
because
caring
people
enough.
The
complained
words of the
about-
purple Sharpie do not reflect Future Club or any aspect of Future Club or Nintendo in any way, shape, or form. I'm required to legally say that.
I'm glad you said it. Okay, so transitioning on to, I think, the juicier topic is the Mario Brothers casting. What the hell? How the hell do either of you feel about what happened with that Mario Brothers casting?
I'm okay with Bowser's casting. I
think everyone is.
Yeah, I think Jack Black would be hilarious. Everybody else, I'm kind of like, meh.
Jack
I don't
Black
understand
is
Chris Pratt. I do not understand.
What do you mean? You don't understand Chris
I
Pratt?
don't understand why he's being cast as Mario. I do not.
The most popular cis white man who's also a Christian and does very well with the
Is
Midwestern
he the most
demographic.
popular still? There's no other Chris that's more popular than that. There's no other white male right now. There's definitely other white males who are.
But all of them, all of the very famous ones have baggage associated with them that Nintendo does not want associated with their product in any way, shape, or form.
Chris
If
Pratt
you get,
also has baggage though.
but his baggage is that he's a Christian.
No, there's other shit that's been said about him, like some negative stuff, but it's only within the US. What about the other Chris who's Captain America? He doesn't even have that
Chris
baggage.
Evans?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Chris Pratt's actually more popular than Chris Evans.
Chris Pratt is actually more popular.
Since when?
Since always.
He's been in a lot more
No.
films recently than Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think Chris stepped away, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Significantly. So it's like, no, of course it makes sense to me. What? Yeah.
No, it makes sense to you money-wise. Character-wise, it does not make sense to me.
If I tried to understand anything that any company did character-wise, I would literally never be able to enjoy media ever again.
Wait, what are you talking about? Give me an example.
They cast Jim Carrey as Mr. Eggman in the Sonic movie. What do you mean?
It was the Sonic movie. Did you expect it to be amazing?
I'm just saying they casted him and everyone's like, this is so great.
Who
and
said it was great? Who said it was great?
A lot of people did say it was great. There was a lot of people on Twitter.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
happy
you.
about the casting.
No.
Thank
a lot
you.
of people said it was great after they saw him play the role, not before.
No, they said it before. They said it. They said it before. They said it as soon as they saw the trailer. As soon as they saw the trailer.
People say he was too skinny to be Eggman, and people wanted to know why they cast him because in all of the games, He's fucking huge.
The Sonic movie's a spicy topic because we actually, Destiny and I and Matt, our host, saw Sonic the Hedgehog movie together.
You keep saying our host, like we're not host with him.
Well, we're our co-host, sorry. We saw it together and then we reviewed the movie together, and it was a very heated topic because I didn't like it.
All I'm saying is, if I tried to understand why casting choices were made after a certain aspect, when money starts getting involved, like if you just remove the money concept in totality and you gave me a list of casting actors and they all performed in front of me and I went based off their past criteria, it would be a different conversation. But this is Nintendo, a company that is very notorious for making choices defined upon their brand, defined upon their ROI, and defined upon their consumer base, specifically of a lower age demographic. And so to me, the obvious choice would be a cis white man who is very well known with a younger demographic, who is also very palpable, specifically to the large Christian base that Nintendo tries to cultivate. Specifically a family-friendly base. And who is that? That's Chris Pratt. And it's always been
Nintendo
Chris
tries
Pratt.
to cultivate a Christian... What?
Family-friendly, yes. Inside of America, that means Christian. Yes. Yes, that's exactly what that means. So when you're looking at them stopping events from happening in the competitive sphere, it's specifically because at Smash events, which are people
so
typically...
Nintendo America, because Nintendo Japan does not fucking care.
Nintendo Japan makes all the decisions. Nintendo America is just another company exclusively to operate inside of the United States of America.
But how would Nintendo Japan know about... See, that's what I'm confused about.
How would Nintendo Japan know about what?
They would know because they would talk to Nintendo America, right?
What specifically?
Christian family friendly, right? Because
that's something that Nintendo's always tried to do. Nintendo is... Okay, so do you know why Super Smash Bros. Is so popular? Do you know why it's the best-selling fighting game of all time?
I don't play it, and I don't know.
The reason why Super Smash Bros. Is the best fighting game, literally the best top-selling fighting game of all time, is because it's the only fighting game that you can put up there and parents will overwhelmingly purchase for small children. There is no other fighting game on earth that parents will buy in an overwhelming amount than Super Smash Bros. Melee or the entire Super Smash Bros. Franchise, because they see Pikachu, they see Mario, they see Luigi.
I get that it's kid friendly. I don't understand the religious part that you
the religious aspect comes from the fact that fundamentally inside the United States of America, family-friendly is seen as Christian values. They're synonymous inside of the United States of America.
I think also another
aspect of this... So when you talk
this...
about American actors, and when you talk about we want someone who's family-friendly, them being Christian or them being overwhelmingly...
Would you consider Jack Black to be family friendly and overwhelming? See, that doesn't make sense to me.
Jack Black became family friendly when he did Nacho Libre and School of Rock and stopped doing Tenacious D movies and stopped performing his comedy. That was when Jack Black became family friendly and became more palpable. And ever since then, he has also gone on to host things like the Children's Choice Awards back in the early 2000s. He's been in several different television shows specifically predominantly for children. And more recently, he's been on TikTok, which is exclusively focused on smaller children. And he's been doing content that's considered family friendly. It's like him inside of a Spider-Man outfit, jumping in water, prank stuff like that. You know, relatable content that children can consume without any issue, right?
Yeah. I guess I get it. I get the family friendly. I just don't get the religious aspect of it.
I
understand what you said about it, but to me, that doesn't make sense to me why they would care about someone's religion versus if they're family friendly. But you're saying that they go synonymously together.
Yes.
I think also...
Especially to the American consumer in terms of movie.
Because the film company that's making the movie is an American film company. It's Illumination Studio.
That's what I thought.
Historically has done like this kind of casting for all of their films. So
it makes sense to me, is what I'm trying to say. Like, so it's like Nintendo will sign off on that because they're like, family friendly.
Illumination makes so much money off of their films by going that direction for every single one of them. So
it's just, to me, it makes total and complete sense. You're not going to see people like... You may see Kenan Thompson, like, later make a guest appearance in something, maybe by them, but like it's very difficult, I feel, for people of color to get these type of roles because of the type of art that we have to make in order for it to be widely consumed.
Mm.
You know? So it makes sense to me. The
Yeah.
casting all makes sense to me when I see the faces. Is it the faces I would have put towards it if I had my choice, if I really wanted to create the most traditional and real piece of media ever? No, it's not in any way, shape, or form.
No.
But considering what I believe they're going for, I think that is a very strong casting. And I'm not going to watch the movie at all. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Watching that
I'm not gonna watch it. I don't
wa-
support Chris Pratt.
watching that cast announcement made me feel like I was in an episode of the Twilight Zone. Like I felt like I was
I think
another
it's
planet.
weird.
It was bizarre.
Yeah.
And while we're on the topic of spicy casting, our next topic
God.
is Netflix just released it's to be determined yet if it's actually going to be the intro for the show or if it's just marketing material, but they
That is
recreated
terrible.
the intro to Cowboy Bebop with their live action cast. So Destiny,
I
could
thought
you
they said they were going to create it.
are they?
They
Oh, maybe they
did.
will. Yeah, so they
It's been
re
up.
Yeah.
yeah,
Haven't
they
seen it? Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
I
I mean
just
I thought they said they were going to create the entire serialized show. I
Oh,
thought
yes,
said
they
were
are.
going to do that.
What I meant
No,
is
they said no. They said that it wasn't going. It's not going to be like a 1-for-1.
Oh,
It's
I see.
supposed to happen after Vicious or whatever.
Oh,
Which
that's interesting.
I don't know if that's like actually what they're doing because they've shown shots from like where he's fighting Vicious. So I don't know if it's picking up like right then, like right after the fight, but it's supposed to be afterwards, not like one-on-one for the show in the series. I
See,
don't know. I
I
don't
have
like
mixed
it.
thoughts about it, specifically because I feel like a large reason why Cowboy Bebop prospered in the late and early 90s was specifically because of the very limited choices that we had as far as anime, specifically Japanese animation. The story is very compelling, the characters are very compelling, but I feel like the current story as it so stands is very difficult to stand out now when you've already had so many other people do that similar trope. Like it's very hard to compete with something like One Punch Man and like When. You know, like you can't come out
Those
with
are
like
completely different though.
no, 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 but hear me out because it's like Cowboy Bebop was one of the only animated shows that a lot of the younger American audience had to watch inside of our age group. And that was a big reason why it was consumed. It's a very good story. It was a very good telling. It had a fantastic dubbed cast and it was showcased on syndicated television, you know, on Cartoon Network.
Toonami.
Yeah, Toonami, right? But think about all the choices that people have now to watch in terms of like what you want to do. Really, the one thing Cowboy Bebop has for it right now is nostalgia. And the issue with selling a show on nostalgia is that if you're not true to the vision that all these fans have in their head of how that show talked and how this character acted and how this character looked, people are going to be mad. So like I personally am rooting for them because I'm very much so a fan of Ed, and she was like literally my hacker wet dream when I was growing up. But do I think it's going to cause a second coming for Cowboy Bebop? No. Do I
As
think it's going to be an amazing show?
I don't think
Maybe.
that's what it's supposed to be.
What
I
is it
don't think
supposed to
it's
be?
supposed to be a second coming. Like I do think, like if you look at a lot of stuff that Netflix has made, it's basically like my generation and a little bit older, and they're taking things like from their childhood, from their history, and remaking them in their own vision. I don't think this is supposed to. I feel like more like this is like an ode to what Cowboy Bebop was. I don't think you can say because there's so many different anime now that you could look at that in some way Cowboy Bebop still doesn't stand up to the standard of what's coming out today because traditionally anime has not really changed a lot it's always had very deep stories. It's always tried to have very complex characters, especially in a more serious anime. I think Cowboy Bebop, as it is, you could watch it today and it would still hold up against One Punch Man. But One Punch, animation wise, but One Punch Man is a completely different style of animation. So it depends on what you want to watch.
What I'm saying is, I think that what Netflix is banking on here, because they're a company, is they're ultimately looking for a lot of people to watch and enjoy it, right?
Oh yeah, well that's what they're supposed to do.
The example here I really want to give is Death Note, which was remade into a live action show and flopped.
Oh god,
For for similar reasons that I believe that Cowboy Bebop may not perform the way that everyone's expecting it to perform. And one of the reasons why I think that, to be very honest with you, while they may have already shot a serialized show and they may have already created it, one of the reasons why they're trying to gauge so much public interest is because I personally believe that the way that Death Note performed when it came out into a live action was very disappointing to a lot of the conglomerate that saw anime as something to kind of capitalize off of, right? So people are being very careful now with how they approach it and how they serialize and sell it to people, specifically because it's really easy to take a franchise that people saw and grew up with and was like, oh man, this is it, because it's like, you know, what is my real
Hollywood
competition?
is doing now. They're just taking things and regurgitating it.
I don't have high hopes for it.
Me defending the original anime is not me defending what they're doing for the movie or the
I love
remake.
the original anime. I love it. I will die by that.
It's going to be garbage. So like me explaining what I was trying to say about the anime still holding up is not me saying because the anime is holding up, this new live action is going to be bomb. No, I think it's going to be garbage. I think it's trash. I saw the fucking trailer. I was upset. I don't like the casting. I don't like when they take canon characters and just make them black to make them black. I don't like that at all. If you're going to bring in a black character, create a new black character, bring them in on their own. Don't just like flip the color like that's amazing. I just think it's going to be shit. It looks like shit. It's going to be shit. So that's my personal opinion on it.
I think the anime itself still kind of stands the test of time. I think it's really
absolutely.
I will say I think it's really difficult to convince someone who didn't grow up in our generation and didn't watch anime that it was at a certain level when we were watching it. Like I'll still watch Trigun and Ranma 1/2 and still have a very enjoyable time. I still watch Ranma 1/2 every Sunday with my partner, but I also understand that maybe my stepsister or half sister won't enjoy it with me because that's not what they had to watch. They've kind of been like spoiled with what they get to watch, and it's really difficult for that generation to go backwards, which is why I'm saying the live action I don't think is going to hold up as much because the story in Cowboy Bebop, while it was very immersive for us, this next generation has had significantly more thought out stories that have built off of Evangelion, that have built off of Trigun, that have built off of Cowboy Bebop, and created more immersive worlds that we are still coming to terms with in and of ourselves just because of what we were exposed to when we were younger, which is why I believe that it will be more difficult for this series, especially a live action series, if that makes sense. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like I agree with.
I'm saying that I disagree with you inherently is what I'm trying to say.
I think it's going to be trash.
I think it's going to be good, but I think it'll be good to the next generation who never had to grow up with Cowboy Bebop.
Maybe
I think the story.
I don't even think it's going to be good to the next generation.
No, it's going to be good.
Really campy. No,
that's why it's going to be good. So. The next generation loves camp, dude. Did you see what they did to fucking Twilight? They love that shit. They eat it up. They just love it.
Twilight came out when I was like, when you were pretty young, and Twilight was garbage.
Twilight came out when I was 20.
Pre-teens.
Yeah, and this show is also being marketed towards teenagers and very young 20-year-olds. Yes, and the whole
liked Twilight when it came out.
I mean, I liked Shirtless Taylor, dude.
Okay,
like,
right.
You're gonna tell me you didn't? Yo, I know straight dudes. I know straight dudes that liked him.
I did. No.
What I'm saying is
if I'm watching something for the story itself, like Twilight was garbage.
Nobody watches Twilight for the story, dude.
No,
I put that shit on mute.
There are definitely people who fucking love Twilight and then went on to like, what was the next one that it was supposed to be like a play off of it? The Gray, whatever.
50 Shades of Grey.
Well, those
And
are the
people
same
love that.
people. Those are the
It's-
same people that have like their Harry Potter sorting house in their bio. You know,
Look,
like.
but there are a lot of those people. Okay, there are a lot of those people. So
I'm not saying there's not. What I'm saying is that a lot of those people doesn't even begin to touch the culture that you get when you get attractive people and you put them inside of an old anime story with a half-ass story. It doesn't even begin to touch the TikTok audience. It doesn't even begin to start the
I
Tumblr
don't know.
culture.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, in the interest
fair.
of time,
will.
I
Wait
think
and
we're
see.
going to have to move on to the next piece of news. I think
Yeah.
we'll be here
We'll
for
just
a
have to
really
wait.
long
That got
time.
really heated and I didn't expect it to.
Yes, because I absolutely think it's garbage. So for someone to be like, no, I think it's going to do really well. None of the stop.
It's
wait.
hard.
None
It's
of the-
hard
no,
for me.
None of the live action animes have done well because they have been terrible. And even people who watch anime today, there are still some really deep, complex animes where people have certain expectations, not just people who have seen the old anime. So I think if they're like, we're taking this from an anime and they watch it and they expect something to be complex and good, that they're going to be like, wait, this is kind of shitty. So I don't want to say that the newer generation is dumbed down or too spoiled to understand a good story, a good plot, and good characters.
I really want to perform.
This is going to deliver it.
I really want to perform a very cursed test because I've never seen Cowboy Bebop. I never watched
Oof.
anime when I was a kid. I didn't start watching it until recently. Like right now, I think the only anime I've actually ever seen is like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and I've been watching My Hero Academia, and I did see One Punch Man.
Good taste.
Like I should watch the live action Cowboy Bebop first, and then go back and watch the anime
watch
after
it first, and then watch the anime
and see what happens. See how it goes.
I want to know what you think. We'll come back
Mob
to
Psycho. Add Mob Psycho to that list, please.
Which one?
Mob Psycho's funny.
Mob Psycho?
100.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll add that. I'll add that on.
Add it and thank me later. Yeah.
So we keep going on with this show
topic.
theme. The show theme, I'm going to just pass it immediately to Destiny because I think you have an article about this, the Witcher kids show.
So, yeah, The Witcher 2 hasn't even dropped on Netflix yet, but it's coming really, really soon. They've already renewed it for a third season, and they are going to do a spin-off for kids set in the Witcher world. There's not a lot of information on it. This comes from Kotaku. I don't know how that's going to work because the Witcher's world is pretty fucking toxic and violent. So that's what I have on that. There's just not a lot of information about it. But
did they say where it's going to be released or anything like that?
Nope.
Oh wow,
that's weird.
I'm assuming on Netflix.
It's
going to be released on Netflix, but I don't know how they're going to are they going to do it from go through the trials, because the trials are pretty violent. So I'm confused on how they're going to make this kid friendly.
So inherently, The Witcher is kind of like, I was also very when this is hard for me. I grew up reading a lot of Greek and Roman mythology. Not as much Celtic or European centric, so it's The Witcher's kind of a little bit foreign to me, and I also never read the books. What I do know is that I never thought that Disney would be able to make a Hercules movie or a Hercules cartoon and have it be completely and totally clean, and somehow they did. So what I will say is that if they manage inside of The Witcher to somehow completely and totally downplay the killing aspect, and they manage to make The Witcher more of someone who is friends with demons and helps move them along to the other aspect of the spirit world and stuff, that would be an avenue they could go down. And that was an avenue similar to what Hercules did, which was they focused on the good parts of Hercules. He was vanquishing all these monsters that were hurting humans. And if they go down that path with The Witcher, then I think it would be a very good serialized show specifically for children who are having issues identifying as someone that could be awesome, I think that would be a really good story inherently. I think it has a lot of potential, and I think it would be a really cool generational coming of age story if they managed to sell it and market it properly and create it and produce it properly. It could be very, very powerful.
Change a lot and just put the name on it.
But they did with Hercules Disney, too.
But it's not just Hercules. Disney has done that with every story, because all of those stories end fucking tragically. They just take out the tragedy.
And what I'm saying is they could do that with Witcher 2 very easily. It's a serialized game that's rated T for teen, so they can get away with a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's my question then.
Yeah,
And
for
I'm
teens. I don't know how they're going to do it kids friendly though.
My
right?
question. I have a question for you
That's the
both.
thing is a lot of if it's on Netflix, it could be PG-13 and they can still get away with it.
Regardless of the quality of the show, and I guess I don't want to get too much into like the weeds of this question, but I'm curious, despite it possibly being a good show, do you think that's something that like should be made? Do we need a Witcher kids show? Like, is there a problem with that?
But,
Like,
I mean,
inherently,
like, is it going to make them money?
Do we need
like,
anything,
probably,
bro?
Because I mean, like,
need a lot of things, but
it's an adult world. It's like the same thing that. Yeah, it's like the same thing with Deadpool.
It's so popular right now. They're going to try to bank on it as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really feel like I feel like they're just going to slap the Witcher title onto it and it's going to be completely different. That's what I think they're going to do. Like, it's going to have maybe some aspects of it because like even kids get killed in The Witcher. Like in the game, in the world, like it's just filled with death. So I'm like, there's no way they can really put it in that world unless they completely change everything up and they just slap the name on it. Because even in Hercules, there's still like his trials were part of the story. I don't know what angle they're going to come at with this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because like it's just a very brutal world that they live in. So I don't know how they're going to make that. Okay, so let's just say we don't actually know what kid-friendly means to them. So
I also want to point out that like I feel like to your point of like it's a very bleak universe, I feel like that makes it even better for a child to watch because right now the world isn't in the best position. So I feel like it would be more relatable to someone growing up now, and it's more important to someone growing up now to see that story of the world isn't great. You're going to be in really shitty situations, and there's not going to be very much you can do about it, and you just have to do what the best thing is that you personally believe is the right thing to do. And if they take that narrative choice, I think it would be very powerful. I just see that as like, I see that as the obvious decision, and I'm assuming because I see that as the obvious decision, that's the decision they're going to make because I see it as so. Why wouldn't you do that? That's free money, you know?
Yeah.
Like
why
if I were
not
going
just make a different show altogether that focuses on that,
because The Witcher already has an IP and a community of people, and there are adults who have children that understand and have probably played the game. And if someone is like, "Oh, I played this game, my mom or dad will go let me watch it," which
so there's
are
no
a lot
point
of
in
people
making it really kid friendly, then, right?
Well, the kid-friendly part is exclusively for marketing.
Like not going to put a lot of blood in it, or that's what I'm saying. We don't know what they mean by kid-friendly. So I think like we need to wait a little while till they explain it more, because to me, kid-friendly sounds like Disney-esque kid-friendly. So I need to know what Netflix means by kid-friendly, because right now, like, I get what you're saying, and I think that's great, but I don't think you need to put it in like. They would do it for the money, but I just don't think it's necessary. They could just create another like spinoff like they did with Vasimir. They could do a whole series on that and still make as much money because they already have the adult audience. They don't need to make a spinoff kids version to get that extra money in. And that already did really, really well.
I think Netflix is starting to do what other previous like production companies have done before in the past, which is after they've already received the demographic between the ages of 25 to 35, they then start working on the 6 to 10-year-old demographic in order to establish the base for the future so that they can go ahead and continue to market it, knowing that that will be something that they can redo and has been done several times over by different companies such as Warner Brothers. We've seen it in I'm blanking right now, but Marvel does it literally all the time. Like, I see Netflix starting to repeat things, even with them purchasing up other television shows. Like, what was it? Coco, whatever that fucking show is.
Cocomelon.
Thank you, Cocomelon. Like, ever since they started putting that on Netflix, I was like, okay, I know exactly what they're trying to do. And then Cocomelon started coming out with all these Marvel superheroes. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then they bought up Genius. And then Genius was like, we came out with, these old shows that everyone used to watch, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Moving forward, they're going to kidify all of these IPs that are just popular with adults as well, like
Yes.
make kid versions of them.
That is the move that I saw previously when I was younger, and that is what I believe they are now doing in order to establish themselves inside of the entertainment industry.
Possibly.
She said for the very first time ever listening to this. I don't typically talk regarding anime and nerd culture, so it's just like it's interesting to me to talk to like two people that consistently talk about it, because it's like seeing the parallels, and I usually dissect gaming. So when I see the way that industry heads perform in other aspects of entertainment, it's very similar, because they do the same thing with video games, they do the same thing with movies, they do the same thing with books. It's just
all
it's
the same
crazy to see.
business structure.
It works.
It's all the same business structure of like boards of directors trying to make money and profit off of a piece of entertainment. So it makes sense why they go in
what I'm
similar
saying
directions.
is, Nintendo, hire me, Nintendo, hire me. I can make you lots of money.
Well, for
Don't
our
actually
last
hire me, Nintendo. I really hope to God they're not listening. I really genuinely hope that. I really, because if they are, I just got my company in a lot of trouble by shit talking Nintendo earlier. So I really hope for my sake they're not listening.
They're
shit talk
not.
them.
It's enough. It's enough. It's enough.
Yeah. So the final topic is less spicy. It's a nice little cute thing that Destiny wants to talk about. The release of...
So Nintendo Switch has come out with something called Color Live, which is basically it turns your Switch into a sketchbook. And it actually comes with like a little pen you can get on there, and you can actually draw on your screen. So I don't know why I paid for my iPad. I could have just waited for Switch to come out with something. But I think this is amazing for anybody who's an artist, who has a Nintendo Switch, and you just want to sketch something on the go. Like, here's your chance. Comes with the stylus and everything. So I'm pretty excited about that. It looks really, really cute. I will definitely be purchasing it. If you guys want to find out more about it, you can go to the Nintendo website. They have everything about it, and it is now available digitally. It's $29.99. I don't know how much it is with the stylus. I'm assuming it's going to be around the same price though.
Yeah, they never mark down anything.
Yeah.
No. That's cool though. It's got a touchscreen.
We should use definitely get it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Flipbook 2.0. 100%. Love that.
Oh yeah, Flipbook. Whatever happened to that? That just disappeared.
They discontinued the Nintendo DS and 3DS.
Yeah, and then
that's what happened to it.
They always drop support.
They discontinued the consoles that it was out on.
You know, a lot of companies would like support those servers and things just a little bit longer.
A lot of companies would. A lot of companies would, not the ones that make money though.
That's true.
They just move their assets towards something else.
That's it for news.
And they come out with it 10 years later. Yeah.
Yeah. Repackaged, redesigned. That's everybody. Cycles. But oh my God, that brings us to the end. Sharpie, thank you so much for coming on, talking about your life, talking about your struggles, talking about the things that make you you. Also, thank you for the debate. I still think it's going to be a garbage ass show, but I appreciate your opinion.
Totally welcome to believe that. But I just want to thank both of you so much for inviting me on to speak my mind here. And I just want to say as like a final thing that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. And that's really all I wanted to say.
I agree with that.
That was it.
Thank you so much again for coming on. Can you drop your information one more time so our listeners can know where to find you, to follow you, find out about you?
Listeners, if you're still here, I just want to say thank you so much for not being anti-Black. I appreciate that. Y'all are so fantastic. You can follow me on every single social media platform. I'm at DA Purple Sharpie. That's at the Purple Sharpie on literally every single platform known to God, with the exception of OnlyFans, and that's exclusively because I was banned for shit posting a lot and not posting any content that I should have been. I'm lying. I never made an OnlyFans account. But yeah, follow me on TikTok. I stream on TikTok every single day at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's 3 p.m. Pacific. That's 5 p.m. Central. If for whatever reason you're inside of the middle of nowhere, which I still love you. You can still pretend like you're part of my world. I love you. And yeah, that's it. Play games you love. Don't support large companies that encourage developers to crunch. and, you know, go visit GDOC Expo. It's a great expo filled with fantastic people. And me, the purple Sharpie.
Perfect.
That was great.
Thank
Darren,
you.
anything you want to say?
Eat
Why
the
did
rich.
I go on for so long there, dude?
I know. But I mean, like, you felt you needed to say it, and I'm glad you said it. But all right. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, we love you. This has been a very long episode, but I feel like everything that was said needed to be said. So please, please, please go follow Sharpie, go support her, and like and subscribe to us, support us, and we love you. So we'll talk to you soon.
Like and support the podcast. Come back later.
Da, 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 da.
Dun dun.
Thank you.